The main reason I think we put this thing together was after talking to a lot of people in Phoenix, and it revolved around new features and new markets that we're getting into, and just things that, even though most of you know me and that you've seen the software before, it's things that we're now able to do that we weren't able to do before, or it's things that we're able to do to get into new markets that we weren't really aware of that we were able to do, and weren't aware of these new markets that could fit us, and somehow we just kind of wiggled into them, and it turned out to be good outlets for us. So it's the kind of stuff that I think can help all of us. So just as a brief overview and kind of a reminder, if nothing else, is that ServicePoint it's tied directly into CounterPoint, and what we bring to the party, as I like to say, is service management. So it's anybody that does anything. It's somebody that sends a tech out in the field to repair something, or something that's a service that's done in-house, or a combination. I mean, we have the pool and spa guys that go out on site. They do pool cleanings, they do installations and setups of spas and hot tubs, but they also do in-house repairs. Somebody can bring in a pump or a motor and they repair it in-house, and we have specific features that facilitate technicians that work in-house that allow them to clock in and out of jobs on a workstation out on the shop floor. But it's really anybody that does anything. That's the way I like to kind of present this thing and sell it. So just as a brief kind of overview of work orders, it is tied directly into CounterPoint. So there's a very tight integration with customers and with inventory. Those are our two main modules of integration. Anybody that's in CounterPoint, somebody can do service for them. I can open up a service work order and use any of the customers that are over on the CounterPoint side. Likewise, if I enter a customer into the service side, we can add them on the fly. And if I do that, they end up over in the CounterPoint database, and they're available over there should you then sell to them through point of sale. They come up as one of your customers over there. So there's a very tight integration on the customer side using the customer file, tax codes, terms codes, all those things we use. So there's no redundancy of entry. So we access that directly from the CounterPoint database. The other tight place of integration is through inventory. So anytime there's an item that's used, and by the way, this is a pool and spa demo company. It's one that I set up for the show in Phoenix. I just decided to use this database. But anytime that any inventory is put onto a work order, it can be committed out of that warehouse and CounterPoint, thereby reducing the quantity available. And then at the time this thing is invoiced, of course, those quantities get relieved. We do support multi-inventory locations, so you can use individual warehouses. In this case, we're tied into a truck because the tech that we assigned to this work order has a truck assigned to him, so we defaulted to that. But you can use main warehouses, auxiliary, trucks, and we keep track of the stock in all those locations separately. And we'll report actually what's available in each one of those locations as they're chosen. There are options, by the way, where we don't necessarily commit inventory. The work order status codes, for instance, in this case, this one is scheduled. But since the user can define statuses, they can say for any of these statuses, do you commit inventory or not? And that's useful for things like quotes. Maybe you have a status that's a quotation. You can build a job, put inventory from CounterPoint onto the job, but not commit inventory until that job is accepted, and then you change it to a status that indicates the quote's been accepted, and then that commits all the inventory out of CounterPoint, and it kind of gets the job rolling at that point. So it is user defined, and there's some options there to control how the inventory is committed. We also support kits. We support serial numbers and grids. So any of the parts that are put on here that have those options available, we prompt for that additional input. In the grand scheme of things, the simplest overview of work orders is that it's kind of the central point of the system. It's where most of the work takes place. And it's where tasks are defined and people perform service, quite simply. So in this case, I have a work order that has two tasks on it. I have a planned maintenance task on a spa. I have a deliver supplies. Some other examples, I have installation of a heater in this case. And you can see there's some color coding that goes on. I'm going to point out what that does on the schedule once we get to looking at the calendar. But these tasks are defined on the ServicePoint side, and then to each one of those tasks, I can assign labor, which are my techs that go out and actually do the work, and it can be hourly or flat rate priced. Inventory items, so that's the parts used tab. That's the next one over here. And the third charge that can be assigned to a task are additional charges. And I loosely define that as anything that's not labor and parts. So that can be where the flat rate pricing goes in. That can be where trip charges are automatically calculated, zone charges because a customer is outside your normal service area, that kind of thing. When you define a task, I can either kind of put this thing in piecemeal. I can define a service call. I can then put a task on it. I can pick a service code. I can define a piece of equipment. I can build it as I go. Or we have a thing called predefined jobs. And predefined jobs allow the user to set up repetitive tasks that are kind of a template for a work order. It can have one or more tasks on it. It can have inventory parts on it, so like a kit of parts that are used for that job. Some canned inventory time, notes, charges. All these things can be set up in a predefined job, and that makes work order entry really easy. When a customer calls and they want something done, you can pick the customer and or their equipment. You apply this predefined job. You might put in a custom note for that job, but all the components that normally come in for that type of work are automatically attached to it, and then all you do is save it. So it makes it really fast. And when I demo this to an end user, it's a really good feature to be able to show, to say, okay, we're going to do some predefined jobs, and we set them up. I try and I preload the data based on the type of customer, and I do a little research on them, look at their website, steal their logo, put it on the forums, that kind of thing. And it makes the demo go very smoothly for them. And actually, just yesterday, I did one, and the end user asked me if I was involved in that industry. They said, because that's exactly what we do. And I said, yes, I know. I looked into your website. So anyway, just continuing this overview of work orders, that's how all the charges get in. The work orders can be created by entering them directly into ServicePoint, but they can also come from CounterPoint. We've done a lot of integration through triggers and stored procedures in the database. There's some automated ones that the user can set up, so they can go into utility up here and under database maintenance, and they can do this thing that we call a POS transfer trigger. That allows users to specify under what conditions do we want to create a work order. So for deliveries, for instance, it's a great use for that. We have a lot of lawn and garden centers that use ServicePoint for deliveries, and what they'll do is customer comes up to the point of sale terminal. They have a bunch of stuff in a cart. They got some bushes, some trees, some mulch, maybe bagged mulch. But there's some things that they just can't take with them. So they might take some of the stuff home, and then they might ask for the trees to be delivered because it doesn't fit in their Mini Cooper or for whatever reason. And if there's a certain line that gets put on that document in point of sale, specifying this trigger for a specific item or category or subcategory, let's say like a service category or delivery category, that triggers the insertion of a delivery work order over in ServicePoint automatically. So by setting up this trigger, it sets up this base routine that says whenever I include this type of line on a document in CounterPoint, I'm going to create a work order over in ServicePoint. That can actually be modified further, and we've done quite a few of these things. I have a whole library full of modified triggers and stored procedures. But some companies will say pop up user-defined profile fields in CounterPoint when a delivery line is put on that says, okay, when do you want to deliver this thing? And you put a button over on the the CounterPoint point of sale screen that then pops up our calendar and lets somebody look at the calendar, see what the workload is like. They can schedule techs as well as trucks. So I can filter this thing just to look at my trucks, maybe see when I'm going to be in a particular part of town. And then over on the CounterPoint side, I can specify the day and maybe the time of day, like morning or afternoon, that I want to do this delivery. And that will not only create the work order over in ServicePoint, it'll also schedule the truck for the proper day. And it automatically puts it on the calendar, spits out the documents, maybe the delivery tickets for the drivers. There's a ton of automation that we've built in between CounterPoint and ServicePoint that's easily tweaked through the use of these triggers and stored procedures. It's a really good way to get work orders into. It saves a lot of time. In summary, on the work order, this is This is where I look and see what's on the work order so far. It kind of gives us a subtotal of the charges, shows us the texts that are on here, the amount of time they've put in. In this case, I have an estimated time to repair. I don't have any hours yet because my guy is just scheduled. I haven't actually put any time in for him. We also have a thing here that that allows you to view a signature that's captured in the field. Our mobile application does allow the driver or the technician while they're out in the field to collect a signature from the customer. And then you can email them a document while you're out in the field, kind of a summarization or an invoice directly from the mobile app, and it sends a formatted HTML email to the customer from out there, and it captures the signature and brings it back here so you can look at it if you want to, date and time stamped and all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of a brief overview of the whole process of work orders and what that's all about. I just wanted to cover that briefly. One other thing is that notes can have pictures embedded in them. And we found that that's a very useful sales tool because most service companies want to be able to either capture the condition of some equipment when they got there and or when they left. Likewise, if a user sends an email with a picture on it of a leaky part or a broken component, that picture can be attached to the work order. Then the tech can reference that directly before they even go out in the field. They may have some idea of what's wrong or what parts they need to bring. So we can insert pictures from files directly into these notes, and they get stored away with the work orders. Some of the improvements that we've done lately, they revolve around work orders and scheduling. I definitely want to show the mobile app because that ties into this stuff directly. The other basic functionality that we have besides work orders, we do cover scheduling and dispatching. That comes into play for deliveries. Some of the markets that we've emerged into, one of them is pet grooming, by the way. It's a very unusual market that I never really saw myself in, but since we can relabel fields and we can repurpose parts of the screen just like CounterPoint can, we found that it's a really good fit for the pet groomers. And they live on that scheduled dispatch screen, but what we do for them is we rename all the fields. So for instance, serial number is pet name, and model ID becomes breed of animal. And instead of having PM schedules, they have a thing they call visit frequency. So if a dog gets groomed every 6 months, that's their schedule, and we'll remind them that the grooming is coming due. They can send a notification to the owner that says, hey, it's time to have Fifi groomed. It's been 6 months. Do you want to come in for another visit? It really it makes it very, very flexible and has got us into some markets that we don't normally sell into. But those guys, they live on that schedule screen because it's color coded. As a pet comes in and gets checked in, the color coded block can change. So maybe it's maybe it's green just to have a scheduled appointment, and then it turns blue when the pet gets there, and then it turns red when the groomer starts to work on the pet and to do whatever they've made the appointment for. And then when it's done, they can push it straight to point of sale from that schedule screen, and it appears at the counter, and it sends a notification to the customer that their pet is ready, and when they come in, they can pay at the counter and pick up their animal. It's really a good fit. I was kind of surprised myself. But in that case, the customer equipment actually says pets, and so it's a pet database. But we do full customer equipment management. We track warranties on equipment, so we know how to charge for repairs or whether to charge manufacturer. We track PM scheduling or grooming frequencies, if you will. But that allows scheduling of recurring services for equipment on a regular basis, and we can automatically kick off the service for those. It's really good for lawn maintenance, for pool and spa cleaning, for industrial equipment that gets serviced every 6 months or every year. They can have a service contract on file, and as a result of that contract, the service site automatically goes out and schedules this work every so often, and we facilitate that as well. On the schedule, some of the stuff that we've done fairly recently, and as a result of some of these industries we've got into, the color coding of the schedule has been huge for a lot of industries. We added some views, by the way. We didn't always have all these. We have a monthly view that shows what's scheduled for the month based on certain selection criteria, type of technician, maybe it's delivery trucks, maybe it's service guys, maybe it's the new construction crews versus the repair guys. But you can specify what you want to see at any given time in the schedule and break it up by employee. So when I log on, I'm the delivery guy, I'm only looking at my delivery crews. And I'm only looking at my delivery schedule versus my repair schedule. It's pretty flexible in how we can set it up. But we have this monthly view that shows it on a calendar. We have a weekly view that shows the week in a grid. Here's our techs, in this case, down the left-hand side. Here's the days of the week, and here are the various work orders that are assigned. And as I click on a grid, it changes it on the left-hand side, and you can see that it highlights the proper work order based on where I'm clicking. There's also an option, I saw one of these somewhere, there it is. When it's done, I can set it up to transfer it directly to point of sale for billing. And that's an option set up by the user, but this is what the pet grooming guys do. Most of my groomers, one in particular, they don't even look at that left-hand side of the screen. They have this screen across here. They stay on this daily view, and let me get something that's got a little bit more in the day. And as pets come in, the colors change. They actually changed this to check-in. So all they do is go over here, and they just do an F8 key basically, and that checks in the pet, and that can change the color of this grid to say, okay, this person or this item has arrived for their service, and at a glance they can tell what's going on with the schedule. And when it's complete, they just click that button that appeared here, they push it to point of sale, and it turns color again. That's one of the reasons we put color coding on there. The other main reason to have this is that since we now have a web app, and the techs out in the field can update their work orders from their phone or from their tablet or from a laptop computer. It's a web-based app. It runs as a web page in a browser. So since they can do that, when I first log into here, and I even forget what colors I put on these things, but the blue one in this case is scheduled. So that's my status. That's the color that shows up on this weekly and this daily view. If a tech logs into it, then it's going to change color. So if the tech's out in the field, as they begin working on a work order, I can see in real time back in the office these grids changing color. So a tech logs in, it changes color. The tech finishes, it changes another color. So I can keep track of what's going on out in the field as these guys are updating work orders in real time and making them ready for billing. So we do have a daily view as well. This is text across the top, and then the work orders stack up this way. As a matter of fact, if I took like this Tuesday one, and I'm going to reschedule that to Wednesday, I should be able to do that here. I'm just going to change the date. I'm going to save it. By the way, there's a scheduling conflict notice that you can turn on and off. I can set schedule conflict notifications, and I have that here. It tells me it's going to cause a conflict with scheduling because it's going to overlap. And the same thing can happen from CounterPoint, by the way. If I'm scheduling a service from the CounterPoint screen for a delivery or an install, I can check for conflicts from there and keep it from saving that ticket or that order over in CounterPoint if it causes a conflict. So that's able to be turned on and off because some people don't mind overlaps. So basically what I did is I just gave this guy another work order on the same day, and I just wanted to show that they do stack up on a daily basis. So if Anders has two things, these are the two things he's going to be working on that day. And on this Gantt chart view, this is a daily view of the hours scheduled. And you can see where the overlap occurs. It turns red, so I know that I've overlapped my jobs there. And I can easily adjust them on the left-hand side if I want to. I can pick them up and drag them and drop them to make them not overlap. But the reason that I like this Gantt chart view is that everybody can have their own calendar. If I have techs that only work on a certain day, or if I have certain facets of my business that are only done during certain hours, I can give them their own calendar, and then that highlights the gray, the available and not available hours. And they do change by the day in the calendar I have set up in this demo. But you can also change them by individual, and I can set limits for every one of the resources I'm scheduling, whether it's a truck or a technician or a crane or a digger, anything that you might schedule as part of your work. I can give it its own limitations based on number of tasks I can assign in a day or number of hours I can schedule in a day. And if I try and go over those limitations, I can say, do I allow them to be overridden, or is it a hard limitation where if I try and give somebody 6 things to do and I only allowed them 5, am I just going to keep that from being saved and say, hey, he already has 5 things, you can't give him another one? You're going to have to put it on another day. The other thing that facilitates that, by the way, is the ability to pull up this, what we call the next appointment finder, the next available appointment. And I can pull this up from point of sale as well. I can put buttons over there in CounterPoint that pull up individual windows from ServicePoint directly. And we have quite a few users that will use this next available appointment finder. If I'm working on a particular task, it'll give me the amount of time for that task, but in this case, it defaulted to half an hour because I didn't have one. And then I can specify a date range and a time range. So maybe, sometime after next Tuesday between 2 and 4 in the afternoon, and I can specify tech categories if I want to. And that's what distinguishes different types of service people, like plumbers versus HVAC technicians versus pool cleaning guys, or trucks versus techs. And when I say find my next appointment, it goes out there and it finds the next available appointment that meets these criteria starting with now. So as you can see, my next appointment is 12:30. It's in 5 minutes for everybody because I didn't specify any other parameters. But it looks at the current schedule, takes that into account, and it finds my next person that has available. And if I want to use that, I click Use Selected, and it starts entering a work order for that day. Excuse me. Everything that we print, by the way, so if I go over here and I find myself a work order and I print my work order form, I have a demo work order form.rpt, which is defined. Everything we print is crystal reports. So they're easy to change. It's easy to drag and drop logos on there. Whenever I do a demo for somebody, I always take a logo off their website or off their documentation, and I try and put it on the forms for them and show them how easy they are to change. For people that do in-house service, I always barcode the work order forms. And that's because we have a thing called shop floor time management now for in-house service that allows techs to barcode in and out of jobs. And it takes the responsibility off of the management from keeping track of these guys and making sure that they don't basically delete or mess up work orders, because all they can do on this screen, if that's all you give them access to, is to scan in and out of jobs. So if I'm this guy Anders and I walk up and I've got this work order in front of me, and the company that we actually worked with when we first developed this, their guys have badges that have their barcode on them. So it's like, this is me, this is my barcode. So we don't have to go through this lookup process. They just wand it and it fills out their name. And it knows what they're doing. So in this case, rectangular. In this case, this guy's clocked into a task. He's installing an LP heater. It's a field job, obviously. But the only thing this person can do, since they're already clocked in, is they can stop this task or they can cancel the process. So they scan their ID. It knows they're working. I say I'm going to stop, and then I scan my ID again, and it tells me this is the most recent task I've worked on. What do I want to do? Do I want to resume? I clock back in. Maybe I clocked out for lunch, and I'm clocking back into this thing. Or I clocked out at the end of the day, and I'm going to clock back in the morning. But it makes it real easy. It's just like 2 swipes, and you're clocked in. If I want to select another one, then the barcode that's on that work order form is what they scan, and it fills this out. So by scanning that thing, and I don't have a scanner hooked up, but by scanning that work order, it automatically pulls up the correct task, and then they just click start, and it clocks them into that job. It puts an entry on that labor tab. It puts in the start time. When they scan out, it puts in the stop time. If it's an hourly charging job, it calculates the right charges based on the hours. And if it's a flat rate job, we still capture the proper costs because the guy was clocked in for, let's say, an hour and a half. We know how much it cost, and we can do good profitability analysis at the end of the day. So this has become key when I show this thing to people that do in-house repairs. It really helps them, and all they need to do is put a laptop or a computer with a scanner on it, and it lets their techs clock in and clock out without getting to any of the guts of the work orders under the system. So the newest and the latest and the greatest thing is the web application. And I definitely want to show that. It's not tied directly into this database because I'm going to show the one that we have that's actually out on the web. So if I go to the ServicePoint web login, I'm actually going to refresh that page. We'll see what happens there. Okay, so this is the web app running in a browser, and I'm actually running it remotely. I'm not running it locally, so it's not tied into that same pool database. I didn't want to bring up my web server and my development environment and all that kind of stuff for this demo. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to shrink this page down some. I want it to look a little bit more like a mobile device. And the tech ID is what the tech uses to log in the field. They're set up under the technician and ServicePoint that it assigns them a password, assigns them certain permissions. So this guy logs in. It knows who I am. It assigns the password over on the ServicePoint side, and it assigns certain permissions. And based on those permissions, when this person logs in, I can see certain things. So in this case, it's defaulting to some dates. Here, normally it defaults to the current day, but because I'm on my remote system, this remote.rtmcs.com, I've assigned it certain powers, so it goes back into the past because all my demo data is in the past. But because of this person's permissions, all they can do is see the things that have been assigned to them in ServicePoint. So if I put somebody on a work order back on the ServicePoint side, so if I go into either the schedule or the work order screen, and I assign somebody on this labor screen and say, okay, this guy's scheduled for 5/19/04, he's going to see the things that appear in that labor tab. And when they get to this screen, they are in order by date and time. So this is the order that's been assigned back in the office. If I click on details, I see some detail about the work order on my mobile device. And since it runs in a browser, it runs on an Android device, it runs in Windows, it runs on an iPhone, an iPad. It'll run on anything that has a browser. So I can see certain things about this. I can see I have planned maintenance, I have deliver supplies. This is very similar to the demo data we're looking at in the ServicePoint desktop application over here. But I get to see where this is located, and I can map it. And one of the great things about this running on a mobile device is if I click this map tab, what's going to happen to me locally is it's going to open up another tab and do Google Maps because I'm on my laptop. And this is my address over on Corporate Lane in Memphis, Tennessee, and I can get travel directions from here if I want to. If I'm on a mobile device, I'll have the option to open it in my browser or open it in the Maps application. If I open it in the Maps application, I can then use it to get turn-by-turn directions and navigate to the site. And when I get to the site, I bring it up, I tap on this labor button, and I can clock in and clock out. So in this case, this one's already clocked in and clocked out. I'm just going to add a new one. And what it does is it puts in a labor item with the current time. And I can put notes in if I want to on this thing. I can put in parts used, work order wide notes as well. But the tech can do all the things that we give them permissions to do while they're out in the field. And as they're doing this, as the guy's clocking into this job, it's turning colors back on the schedule back in the office. As he's putting parts on this work order, these are, somebody's obviously been on this one, putting in replacement fan motors a lot. As I put in inventory parts, it's putting them on that parts tab on the work order back in the office. And it's charging how it says to charge. In this case, it's time and materials. So if I don't have any items in my truck. By the way, this is limited to the truck that I'm assigned to. Based on this guy's permissions, it's not letting me pick inventory from other warehouses. That's why that came up that way, because I'm logged in as this guy Anders. But it does, it commits parts and it puts chargeable line items onto that work order while this guy's out in the field. Notes. The nice thing about having this on a mobile app is that the notes can be spoken. And almost every mobile device now has the option to do voice-to-text recognition input, and that's really nice for the techs out in the field, because not only do they not like to stop and type necessarily, they might not be good at it, and it's nice if they can speak into this thing and put in notes that show people back in the office what's going on. And those, again, they get stored back in the notes section in the work order. On the summary tab, this is where they can get a total of the work performed so far. So it does give you a gross total of the work that's done, the charges. They can collect a customer signature out in the field. I never know what I'm going to find. I was doing a demo one time, and I should really check before I get there, by the way. Because one time I came out here and somebody had drawn like a picture of a fish as a signature, and you just, it is what it is. This does not have email enabled because since this is a remote hosted piece, I don't have permissions to use the mail server from out there, but I do on when people install this on sites, of course they do, and I do when I run it locally. But we do have the option of then emailing the customer a ticket. It'll pull the customer email address from the CounterPoint customer file by default. It'll allow it to be overridden. And then in the email setup over on the ServicePoint side, it allows us to specify a CC address, so it also goes to a copy goes to the company so that you have your own copy of that email as well. And it can be laid out via HTML to look like an invoice or look like a just a friendly note that says, hey, we were out at your site, here's what we did. It can have the charges on it if you want to, the notes on it. It's all up to the user as to how that ticket is defined. And then when they're done, they go back to the work order list and they just work on the next one. And all of that while they're updating things via the web portal, via the remote app, it's putting in times and technician hours and parts used and notes into the work order back in the office. So when they're done out in the field, then presumably this thing's ready to bill. Somebody reviews it, they change it to a status that allows billing. And at that point, it can be invoiced and posted on the ServicePoint side, or it can be pushed to point of sale for billing over there. Some people prefer to push all the work orders to point of sale. It really results in the same thing. It updates service history over in ServicePoint. It updates ticket history fully in CounterPoint. It relieves inventory. It updates the customer's account and receivables. They're virtually identical at the end, but it's just a matter of, do I want to push it to point of sale and release it from the ticket screen, or do I want to select and invoice it from the ServicePoint side and then post it? We have added another couple of new things recently. We added a thing called forms groups. And what that does is it allows the specification of a single form or multiple forms that all go out at the same time. So if for instance, in this one, I have a particular form. It's a crystal report that comes up and it asks me to, well, actually it goes to preview. So in this case, I said preview. It says select destination at print time. So that makes sense. It comes up, it previews automatically, and then if I want to, I can export it from the crystal reports window. But my options are to actually select when printing. So it'll come up and say, hey, do you want to preview or do you want to print? I can automatically preview it, which pops it to the screen. I can say I want to allow the user to select a printer, which automatically brings up the, hey, what printer do you want to send this thing to window. I can route to a specific printer. And if I do that, then it wants me to pick a printer out of my Windows printer devices. One of the reasons that is there is for people like our automotive repair guys. Let's say somebody comes in. We do have a lot of automotive accessory shops, by the way. Somebody comes in, they buy an aftermarket part. They buy a muffler, or they buy a $1 zillion set of wheels for their car. They want them installed. If there's an installation item, like I alluded to earlier, I can go into CounterPoint and I can say, okay, I want to have these things installed, and it should automatically kick off a work order over on the ServicePoint side. I can also decide where that thing's going to go on the ServicePoint side. Like, is it a bay that does tires, or is it a bay that does mufflers? You can specify that individually if you'd like to. When that happens and the work order gets created, it's really nice to have it spit out a ticket in the proper place. So what it can do is it can pop out a receipt for the customer, and it can also send a work ticket to the proper location out in the shop. We have a guy that does bicycle repairs. It's a bike shop that we just did as well. And they use this feature so that when they print a work order, it prints out a receipt for the customer, which is kind of like a claim check for them because they brought a bike in to have some work done on it. And it also prints out a hang tag at the same time automatically to a label printer, which they can then attach to the item, and it follows it around the shop, has a barcode on it, so they can pull up the work order via barcode anytime they want. And this is what makes that possible. Just saying, okay, I have multiple forms in multiple layouts, and whenever I click this button on the work order, well, it's going to save the changes. This one automatically comes up to this window here, but it'll automatically send different forms to different places at the same time. That's a very recent thing for us. We also recently allowed the setup of an internal mail server on the ServicePoint side. So we no longer, for those of you that knew about this, we no longer try to use Outlook when we email forms. And I know that makes somebody out there happy, because there's a lot of people that said, Outlook, why do you have to use Outlook? We finally allowed an individual email server to be set up on the ServicePoint side, and that way when a form is emailed, either through the forms group or automatically, we can send emails automatically when a work order changes status, by the way. It uses this information, and it just sends it straight to that SMTP server, and there isn't any need to use Outlook anymore. It automatically goes out, it makes everybody happy, and it works on every single machine, no matter what email client you use. Another fairly recent development is what we call a quick equipment history report. And that's available when I'm entering a new work order or if I pull up an existing work order. But the idea was, when I pull up a certain serial number, at any given time, I want to be able to see everything we ever did for it. We've done nothing for this guy. But what it allows the user to do is, once they pull this thing up, is to say, there's something with a serial number. I can click on this guy. If there is anything in history, and there's not, I can pull up this quick report that breaks down everything that we've done for that serial number in the past in chronological order. And since it's a report instead of a window that pops up, that's able to be changed by the customer via Crystal Reports outside of the software. It can be customized highly for a site without actually customizing ServicePoint itself. So we did that to just to allow people to tailor how they see the recent history for that equipment. And it was originally done for our pet groomers, because they wanted to see what they charged the last time somebody came in for the same service. So that's kind of that's my mile-high overview of this stuff and some of the new features that are in it, and some of the ways we've been able to get into some of these markets. And I wanted to bring this up. I did have the dealer sheet up because I was showing this at the conference, and actually I told some people I'd send it to them, and I still need to get that out. But this was an updated list of some of the different industries that we've been getting into lately. And I actually added pet groomers. I didn't think I'd ever see the day where we would add that as a specific industry segment, but it got rather large for us for a while. We had a lot of inquiries about that. One of the ones that's not on here specifically is one of the specific rental industries that we got into. And ServicePoint, through the use of the setup of the interface between CounterPoint and ServicePoint, just like we can automatically kick off deliveries from the CounterPoint side, we can automatically do things like add customer equipment. So when an item is sold from CounterPoint, you can specify via a trigger and a stored procedure that says, whenever I sell this category of item or this type of item number, it automatically creates customer equipment over in ServicePoint, for which we're going to start to track warranty information. If somebody comes in or calls up for service, we know when we sold it. We know everything about it because it's already over there. We know who it's attached to and who we sold it to. Likewise, if a trigger is set up, if I do a certain type of order, I can create a recurring contract over in ServicePoint. So if I sell something in here that's actually a rental, I put it on an order, and I'm renting something that has a long-term recurring payment type of rental associated with it. We have a couple different sites that do that. One of them, as an example, does compressors. They do industrial compressors and blowers and things like that. What they'll do is they'll enter an order. That automatically creates a recurring contract over in ServicePoint that bills on a predetermined term. In this case, this one is 1 month. But it can be set up to be once a year. It can be set up to be quarterly. And putting that item into CounterPoint creates this recurring billing contract, which then bills every month as long as that order is sitting out there. And when the rental term is up, when somebody brings that item back, you go into CounterPoint, you pull up that order, you close it out, you basically release it, check for damages, charge for damages if necessary, or for early return or whatever you want to do. And when you close that order out on the CounterPoint side, it then kills this contract so it doesn't recurringly bill anymore. And there's an option to either delete the contract or just end it so that you leave it on file and you can see that it was there on ServicePoint, but it no longer bills. And I'm going to cancel my changes to that guy. But those are some of the detailed interfaces that we've done back and forth. And I have a huge library of modifications to the standard triggers and stored procedures that we have that have enabled people to do some pretty amazing stuff. So having said all that, questions, comments, things that you hope to see that you didn't see, good stuff, bad stuff?
I think it looks great, Bob. I mean, you've added a lot of great things to, what the package has been for so many years, and opening up other markets for opportunities going forward as well. I mean, I just think it's fabulous. I don't,
great.
Have any particular questions or concerns myself, other than being glad they spent a little time to see this today.
Excellent. Thank you, Dennis. I really appreciate it. And
you're welcome.
I appreciate everybody's time and taking a look at this stuff. I know that you're all busy and it takes some time out of your day to do so.
Yeah, and it's been Dennis again. So at some point, I'd like to, we need to schedule a call together specifically with us. I've got some other things for you that I want to talk about. So
absolutely.
We can do that after.
Cool. Anytime. And anybody, if you have questions, you can ask me now, obviously, but you can also you can drop me an email. We can schedule a call. We can schedule personal demos. And by the way, we demo for end users. I don't know if I've made that clear during this session or not, but we do a lot of demos for end users. We're more than happy to do them. I know that there's a lot of partners out there that can show ServicePoint, they can install it, they can train it. Some are just too busy to learn all the verticals, so they don't want to, but we're always willing to do it. And I'll do my best to do the best job we can. I creep on customers, man. I research them. I go to their website. I get their logos. I download their pricing. And when they look at the software, it looks like it will look when it's running in their place, and it's pretty effective, I think, as a sales tool. So we're always happy to do that. Anything else? Anybody else? Questions, comments, kind of stuff?
Quiet group.
I'll tell you.
Well, Andy can't be quiet.
I knew it.
There it is.
I knew it. Thanks, Andy. You knew I was talking to you.
Are you? Yeah, I did. So are you going to do other webinars in the future to talk about the other products you have, your lovely breast pumping rental program?
What? That was the industry. I actually didn't come out and say it, but I can actually do that. I can set it up and I can do an overview of how that rental process works. So I would be more than happy to set one up for that. But that's the exact process that I was referring to when I said if I put in a rental sale item over in CounterPoint, and I have to apologize for my CounterPoint screen, it's not very pretty. But if I put a rental item over here, that's what kicks off that recurring contract. And
okay,
who knew? Breast pump rentals it's a big thing. There's not just one person.
I actually got asked about it on my webinar yesterday. I'm not kidding. It was a hospital, and they asked if CounterPoint could do that, and I said we had an add-on that could do that, and then I sang "Thanks for the Memories."
Hey, I'm going to use that. That's funny, but that's the exact kind of thing it is, because that's an open-ended rental. What they do is they rent these things out with the caveat that says, okay, you keep this thing for at least a month or at least 2 months, and here's what it costs you per month. And then it creates that contract, and then ServicePoint does the recurring billing for it. Fixed pump. That's synchronous for some reason. But then it does that recurring billing. When the person brings it back, the contract stops. But the way they work it is if the person brings it back after 2 weeks and says, you know what, this just didn't work out, then they charge them a fee because they have to clean these things regardless. So if it's gone for 2 weeks or gone for 6 months, they still have to clean it, but they didn't get the revenue from it. So there's some, when the customer returns it, there's some process that it goes through where they go, okay, we're going to close out this order, but you're being charged a cleaning fee because you didn't meet your minimum requirement for time. And also, we noticed that there's a part missing, so we're going to throw that on the order, and then we're going to release it, and we're going to charge you your final bill, and now you're done. So it works really, really well for that, surprisingly.
Yep. Nope, that's great. And again, I hope that the person I pointed your way yesterday I pointed them back to the partner. So
Sure, perfect. Yeah, that's absolutely perfect. And I even have demo data for that, so I will be prepared when the time comes. I will be. And one of the things, actually, since we're still on the line, let me do this. One of the things that I had set up over in here, I had put in one of these triggers. So I think if I put in spa or hot tub, yeah, here's one. So if I sell somebody a hot tub out of this thing, and I know that's not how it normally happens. You don't just go, oh, there's a $7,500 hot tub. There's parts that go along with it, and there's serial numbers that can enter, and there's accessories. So there's all kinds of options when you sell something like this, obviously out of CounterPoint. So it's a very simplistic view just to say I'm going to pop that thing on there because somebody walked in and bought it. But this is the, and I think this trigger should still be in here. If I do a setup and installation line, so I have a service that I sell. I did have it prompt for price in case it's somewhere unusual or there's some other thing I want to add to it. But I add a thing for $125 and I take a deposit, right? So I do some payment. But when I'm done with this, I complete it. So I have this thing for John Lincoln where I have my hot tub and hopefully all my accessories and heaters and stuff like that. And when I complete it, because of the trigger that I set up, that should still be in play here, I'm going to print an invoice. When I get over on the ServicePoint side, somebody logs into ServicePoint, they go in here under work orders. I pull up my work orders, and there's my thing for John Lincoln. It says it was auto-created from POS ticket 70006. And that's my work order, man. I didn't schedule it from over there, but you can do that, like I said, through profile fields. There's my Sovereign hot tub that's getting the setup and installation, and that could have triggered a kit of things that went along with it and notes and stuff like that. But, it's there. It's ready to be scheduled at this point. Just that easy.
Very cool.
There's a lot we've been able to do in SQL in terms of integration that we never dreamed of doing in version 7. It just obviously was not possible to do all this stuff. Anything else? That was a pretty mile-high overview. But like I said, we're definitely willing to schedule individual sessions and demo for end users. And Andy, if you want, I can set up the rental stuff and set up a session for either everybody or a personal session for you and show you how that rental process works.
I think that'd be great, and I think that partners would probably enjoy that too. But if not, yeah, absolutely. I'd love to know more about it. And if you'd like, I will help you make your CounterPoint touchscreen look prettier.
Yeah, it's in sore need of that, isn't it? I know. Every time I do a demo, I make a lot of references to what CounterPoint can do, and if I actually get into it, I'm always kind of ashamed of that screen. So yeah, let's do that.
Hey Bob, where did you get the list to draw from for today's session? I just wish more people had attended, and I'm thinking.
Yeah, gotcha. Actually, it was some people that expressed interest in Phoenix.
Okay.
And we made a list there, and I think Bev contacted a couple other people after the fact, just that had some recent inquiries with us.
Okay.
But yeah,
all right, maybe we can work on that for the next one.
That'd be great. That'd be fantastic. I think these are useful. For a while, we did them. We tried to do them every 6 months or so, and I haven't for a long time. But I think it's great for me. I love talking.
It's always good to get a refresher.
Yeah, and I appreciate it. I appreciate everybody's time for sure. So, anything else? If there isn't, I'll let all of you go. But I'm more than happy to answer more questions.
I think we're good here, Bob. Thanks so much for your time as well. It was great seeing it again, and we'll be chatting in the next day or so.
Thanks. Oh yeah, please contact us. We'll set up the time. I have time slots available, so let me know whenever you guys can do it.
Very good.
Thanks, everybody. I really appreciate the time.
All right.
Thank you, Bob.
Have a great one.
Thanks, everybody. Talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.